Hello, Instagram. Just gonna get set up here and see if I can invite Helene to join. Welcome. Hello, Helene.
Hello, there we
Well,
go.
that was
This is fun.
relatively painless.
Yeah, yeah, that's awesome. You can hear me okay?
Yeah, I can hear you. What about me? Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you just fine. I'm not hearing you. Actually, hold on. I'm not hearing you through my headphones, so I'll just take those off. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, that's what I decided to do. I'm like, I'm not gonna mess with the headphones.
Yeah, they're not
Make
working.
things complicated. Okay, so for those of you who don't know me, my name is Ingrid, and I do a bunch of things around here for FDSA, but I mostly do the social media. So you may have interacted with me through DMs or comments. And my almost 2-year-old Kelpie, Dizzy, who sometimes is featured in videos. And I wanted to talk to one of our instructors, Helene Lawler, today because, well, so we had a staff meeting this morning. We were chatting about something unrelated. And I was like, I bet you Helene's going to talk about that in her webinar tomorrow about people pleasing. It's called Uh-oh, People Pleasing. I forget the second half of the is holding you back.
And you don't even know it.
And you don't even know it. Exactly. And maybe I didn't even know it because after our meeting, I went and checked out your webinar description again. And I'll be honest, I kind of had this like body reaction of like, oh no, I don't want to go there. I don't want to talk about that.
And not even look there.
Exactly. And usually when that happens, it usually means it's a thing. And I know you, and I know the stuff that you do for us is sometimes you're good at challenging us, and but never in like a shamey way, and it's always in a supportive way. So I was like, oh, I know like it's going to be good, and it's not. It might feel uncomfortable, but I know like when I show up, like we're going to get into stuff that isn't actually so scary. So I just wanted to bring you on here and talk about it a little bit.
Yeah.
And what kind of was the inspiration for this subject?
Oh, well, let me think. What was the inspiration of this subject? Well, so one of my main focuses for dog sport coaching, I'm a dog sport performance coach, and I've been coaching people. I still coach on skills, but what I find helps people the most, my jam, the way I'm able to help people the most is working on mindset and working on mindset, working on really understanding theory and practice and like what's going on like between our ears and between the ears of our dogs to the best that we can figure out. So I do a lot of mindset coaching, and I also have a dedicated mindset coaching membership for dog sport competitors called Dog Sport Scholars. And that's the work we were doing in the month of May, because every month we have a focus. And we just like, it was just having such a powerful impact for people. And I was like, I got to get this out there for more people. And when Melissa said, hey, we've got an opening for a webinar on June 1st, I was like, I got a topic. I got a great topic. I'm like all jazzed up about this because I've been coaching on it all month long. I really want to share this with the FDSA community because I think it's such a powerful a concept to understand, because we all people please. We all do it, 100% of humans, because it's a very human thing to do, because we are social beings. We are programmed to want the people around us to be happy, and that's a really good thing. So there's absolutely nothing wrong with wanting the people around us to be happy, to feel good, and and to be generally content. Like if you think about like our our origins back in the cave days, just to be, like hyper simplify this. If everybody around us was happy, chances are life was good, right? And so when people are around us that aren't happy, I don't know if you watched, I saw the Netflix, I think it was on Netflix, The Croods, this family cavemen. It was hilarious, but it just brings so much to the front. And like, they're all like going about their business, but if one of them gets worried about something, like that means there's like danger to everybody, and then everybody panics and they have these big scenes of panic. So it's the same kind of thing. Like we're really fundamentally wired this way. And so we want the people around us to be content and be happy, and it feels really good. So all of that is great. So where people pleasing comes in is when we do things to make the people around us happy, at our own expense. So at a cost to us. And that can be in little ways and it can be in big ways. And when it comes to dog sports, it can hold us back and often without us even realizing it. Simple things like maybe you've got a dog who has some big feelings. And so maybe your dog might be a little bit barky about showing up at an event, and you're a little bit worried that people are going to judge you or get annoyed or say something grumpy or say nothing but think like negative things about you, right?
Naughty things.
Right? Naughty things, yes. Think negative things about you. And, you know, like, I don't know about you, but you go to Kelpie. I have a Kelpie. Kelpies tend to be extroverts. Whatever goes through their minds comes out their mouth. And so I don't know if you can relate to this, but I certainly have a couple of dogs who I know if I take them to an event and they see things going on that they're like not familiar with, they're probably going to have something to say about it. And so people pleasing would be, I'm just not going to bring my dog to the event because I don't want to upset anybody. Now, sometimes that's a reasonable thing to do. Okay. If it's really going to be disruptive, you have a dog that's going to be like really going to, you know, be overwhelmed and overwhelm you and overwhelm others. Then there are steps we're going to want to take before we go there. But for instance, I have a puppy who's 11 months old, Mr. Grin. And if anybody who's following along is in the alumni group, you've met him. And he has some big feelings about things. I am planning to take him to some local trials over the month of June because I want him to get used to being in that environment. I'm going to reach out to the trial coordinator and say, hey, are you okay with me showing up with this puppy? I actually have no idea how he's gonna behave.
Yeah.
He may be fine.
Yeah. I kind of remember you talking about how you were really holding off on that, and maybe perhaps a difficult thing for you to do, to like not just want to get in there away with him.
I'm like, I've taken him to some puppy classes, and then I step back, and I've been working with him at home, and now I'm going to take him back out into public, and I don't really know what to expect because he's been I've been working on keeping his nervous system really stable, and like I've got a wonderful setup for him here and building his skills here. Now we're ready to start taking them on the road. I'm going to test them at this environment. So I am like, okay, maybe he's going to alarm bark at some people. And people pleasing would be me being like, I'm just not going to do this because I don't want anybody to think bad things about me because, you know, I'm an FDSA instructor and I should only have perfect dogs. And so I can't possibly go into public with a dog who's not perfect. And then my dog never gets the opportunity to learn how to function, right? Yeah. So that's the difference between like, I'm going to bring a dog to an event and the dog is going to make life miserable for everybody, right? That's one extreme. And then the other extreme is like, I'm not going to take him anywhere because I'm afraid of people judging me.
Exactly.
So what I'm going to do is I'm like, okay, I'm going to take my puppy, and he may have some feelings, and we have some tools, and we have some skills practice, and we're going to start at the edge of the event where if he does have big feelings, it's not going to like disrupt anything, and we'll work on it. And then I'll get some data, and then I'll decide my next step. And I'm going to allow other people to think what they want about me. And most likely they're going to be busy thinking about their own dogs. I'm the only one who's going to be thinking about me, right? But my brain might go to, oh, they're judging me. And that's where people pleasing gets in our way, is we don't want, then we make decisions based on trying to make other people think positive thoughts about us or feel good, rather than what is the best decision for me and my dog right now.
Yeah. And I'm just thinking about this. We don't have any questions coming in yet. And I don't want to give away too much about your webinar on Thursday. But when I was thinking about it and like what's coming up for me, is like, I am a very green handler when it comes to like sports related stuff. And I've been doing all the Fenzi things and doing, learning how to basically teach behaviors, like doing foundations in my home and in my yard and sometimes at the park. And, we did some foundation sport group classes when she was a puppy. But I'm hearing what you're saying from someone who's been like a high level competitor for like, and you've been in this world for like decades. And like, I'm coming at it like, oh my gosh, like, I don't know the rules. I don't know how it works. And like, am I going to, people going to think I'm doing it wrong, or am I going to inconvenience people by showing up there and not knowing the lay of the land? And it's like, I did learn, I think something that I really picked up on with some of your stuff actually around sensitive dogs. And we had the sensitive dog conference, and you have that amazing course that I wrapped up last term, was about the one piece that I think I've been working on that I'm, I haven't gotten to like the people pleasing around like showing up to, eventually a trial or even just a group class, but just our day-to-day life in advocating for, because she's a sensitive dog. And I really kind of that was a big learning curve for me, and having to kind of like be a little bit more assertive and practice our management and kind of practice not caring what people think. For me, what that looks like is just on the trail, because I'm training at home and I'm not going into those sports environments yet. But maybe that's one of the other reasons why I'm holding off on that, is like there's a lot of anxiety there.
Yeah, well, and that anxiety is 100% stems in this people pleasing mindset, right? It's like, I don't want to get it wrong. And I love that you're having this conversation, because like you said, you're kind of new to all of the sports world, and you're having all this brain drama, and I've been in it for a very long time, and I'm having all this brain drama, right? We're having different thoughts. I'm having thoughts like, oh, people are going to have these expectations of me because of like, I've been doing this, like I'm recently starting to get back into competing after having taken a long break for a bunch of reasons. And my thoughts are like, oh, people are going to expect me to be better than this. People are going to expect my dogs to be more advanced than they are. People are going to expect this. People are going to expect that. And it's possible. It's possible that there are people who are going to have those expectations. And my job is to just allow them and stay in my lane and focus on like supporting myself and supporting my dog. And you're having a whole bunch of different thoughts about like, I don't know the rules. I don't know how, if I'm going to make, screw up. I don't know if I'm going to upset somebody. I don't know if my dog's going to do the wrong thing. I don't know what the right thing looks like. Right. So you've got a whole bunch of different brain drama, but we both have brain drama because we both have human brains, and it's just kind of par for the course. And that's why this topic is so important, because I don't think there's anybody who's exempt for it. It just kind of manifests in different ways. And so when we can start to tune in and become aware of like, oh, I think I'm people pleasing. And then that just gives us that little space to be like, do I actually like, is this in my best interest to behave this way? I'll give you a really super simple example. The other day I had some friends visit and we all trained together for the afternoon. It was super fun. And they came one of them from like 3 hours away. And I had a bunch of frozen dog treats in my freezer for her from a local company that I can get. And she was going to bring them home. She forgot her cooler. So as she was leaving, she's like, oh, I forgot my cooler. And I hope the treats won't melt on the way home. And I thought, I was like, oh, and I immediately just popped out of my mouth, oh, I'll give you one of mine.
Yeah.
And right, I'm just having a good time. I want my friend to be happy. I want her to get home with her treats still frozen. So I was like, yeah, I'll give you one of mine. And then I was like, I'm like literally on the way to go like get one of my coolers. I'm like, what was I thinking? I use these all the time, and we're heading into like trial and seminar season. And I might not see her for 6 months. If I give her this cooler, I'm gonna probably have to go out and buy myself another cooler. And so I was like, oh, I just people pleased, right? Like that was just this impulse, because I just want her to be happy, which is a very genuine thing to do. And there's nothing wrong with it. But I realized, oh, if I give her my cooler, then I'm going to be stranded. So I was like, oh, that's not going to work. So what can we do instead? And so I went and we figured out that we used a space blanket, like one of those like reflective
insulated. Yeah.
And we just wrapped up the treats with that, and she went home with that. No, she actually had one in her car, so it was perfect. But if I hadn't caught myself, because I've got people pleasing on the brain right now, I would have sent her home with my cooler. And then next week when I'm like heading out somewhere, I'd be like, why did I give my cooler away? And so it can be that subtle, and that like just these little simple things that we do. And it's not a bit that in that case, it's like a totally not a big deal, but it's just that little, like, then I would have had to go buy myself another cooler or not bring cold food with me, to an afternoon seminar. So, we do it all the time. And the more we can kind of just sort of tune in, and we just have that little space. Like I was like, what could we do instead here? What would be, an outcome that will keep us like, keep her happy and get her treats home safely, and me keep my cooler. And then we just came up with a solution. So just bringing that awareness, it can be that simple, and around things. And so for you, when you're like, how can I go to this event? I'm avoiding going to an event, and you're like, oh, I think that's a people pleasing thing because I'm feeling a little bit of anxiety, and we can use our emotions to tune in too. You can be like, okay, I know I have goals. I would love to participate in dog sports. I'm feeling all this anxiety. What can I do to support myself and make this feel a little bit safer? And just kind of recognize, instead of just being like, oh, that's not for me,
Exactly.
or just knee-jerk react. Like we tend to, like, our emotions make us like, I feel anxious, I just want to avoid.
Yeah.
And then we just avoid, and then we just don't do, right? But when you kind of recognize, like, oh, I understand why I'm avoiding, because I don't want to upset anybody. I don't want to look like a fool and all. I want people to, I want to, I'm technically trying to control all the people by control, right? Like, I want them all to think good things about me and my dog, right? So that's what we're like, I'm trying to actually control them. If you frame it that way and you're like, oh, well, that's not even possible. And I'm undermining my own ability to do something I really want. And I'm blocking myself from pursuing my goals.
Yeah.
What could I do? And so one of the things that what I'll be talking about in the webinar tomorrow is like really digging into why we people please. So you can identify, like, here's why I'm doing this. For me, there's different reasons. There's like 3 core reasons and 2 forms of people pleasing. And so when we use that to kind of hone in, you're like, okay, now I understand why I'm doing it. I can address this so that I can recognize this is a normal human response. How do I support myself? How do I get myself into a place where I feel a little bit better? And then I can take the action I want to take. And so, right. Yeah, so then we can make decisions from a place of intention and awareness rather than just knee jerk, avoid or react.
Right. Because it sounds like you're saying that, like, the first step is just being aware and noticing and naming it, because like I'm just thinking like how automatic that is, and going into an environment where you're going to run into a bunch of instances where that response is just going to kick in. That you're going to have to be aware of a lot of things. But I just wanted to see what's happening here in the chat. Hey, Terry. Terry's saying our mental game is such an important part to prep, and not nearly as fun as the sexy dog stuff. And I totally get that, because it's like, especially as like, I guess whether you're newer or more seasoned, it's like, oh, sorry. Siri is doing a thing. Sorry about that. Whether you're, fresh or more experienced, it's always, I can see how like the draw is to just like work on the dog skills, but I know like so much of like your stuff that you're coming out with is like, no, it's like, it's not unrelated, like they're connected, like my handler piece and the mental game piece is training as well.
Absolutely. And I think that I love that you just brought that up, because so often people think, when my dog is trained, then I will work on the mind, or when I get to a high level of competition, then I'll need the mindset stuff. And the people pleasing can just reveal so much how, like, even just to like show up to your first seminar or take a class, a lot of us need to work on the mindset stuff. Like, it's important from the get-go. And it's also something that, just like training our dogs, training your brain is not something that happens overnight. And so it takes time to develop the mental skills. So I really strongly encourage everyone to start doing this work from like today and forward. And you just do a little bit at a time. And we just do like what like you said, some of it can feel really uncomfortable. So you just take little tiny baby steps. You're like,
Yeah,
okay, this is as much as I can deal with right
splitting.
now. Splitting, exactly. We want to split and baby step our way along. Like we baby step our brains along this path, just like we baby step our dogs along the skills path.
Yeah,
And so these they dovetail really well. They really work in sync together to do these two types of training at the same time.
Carlotta's saying, I can totally relate to this. So glad to hear this. I'm really focusing on my dog's behavior and not allow other people's possible thoughts get into my space for the better of my own training. Yeah, I can just, I mean, yeah, I've definitely experienced this where it's like your focus, your concentration, like you're just focusing on your dog becomes so much harder when that just kind of like enters into your space, right?
Yes, absolutely. Because when you're worrying about what other people are thinking, that like splits your attention, and then you're focused on that, and then it makes it very hard to focus on your dog. And I actually talk in more depth about why that happens in the webinar, and we dig into that so that to really help with the understanding, because I feel like the more we understand what's going on, like at the the biological level, even then it gives us like the more we can be, it's really important to be kind to ourselves, right? So to be like, of course I'm having this response because I'm a human and I have a human brain, and this is how human brains work. And when human brains are worrying about things around us, it's very hard to focus, just like dog brains, right? If you walk into a ring and your dog is worried about the environment, they're not going to be able to remember their skills very well. And the same with us. And so we got to work on both ends of the leash this way.
Yeah, and I have a sensitive dog, and I learned a ton about this from you. You know, and not to shame or blame myself, like I'm doing the best I can, but I know that she can tell. She can tell when my attention is split on those things. So,
yeah, that's normal, right? Because they're reading us all the time. And your thoughts or our thoughts, when you have a thought, that thought will trigger an emotion, and the emotion drives behavior. And so when you have a thought, you will express a behavior. Our bodies are always expressing behaviors, and our dogs are always reading our bodies. So one of the things that I also encounter a lot of people are like, well, I'm not nervous when I go into a trial, but my dog behaves differently. It's if your thoughts are still thinking about things, you might not be feeling anxious, but you might be focused on something different. So you might be thinking about the end result. You might be thinking about a cue. You might be trying to remember your course, which is very different thoughts around what you're focused on than when you're training. And a lot of that comes up from, I want to be perfect, or I want to have this end result. Again, very normal human behavior, but then we're thinking different thoughts, and that creates different movements in our bodies. And our dogs are always reading our bodies as a language.
yeah, and I know like this is something that we talk about a lot at FDSA, but this people pleasing kind of part of it is just huge, like on its own. And I'm just imagining like all of the people that you to collaborate and cooperate with, all the people that it takes to put on a seminar or an event or just in a group class, like that kind of community kind of energy, and just the kind of pressure to like accommodate all the people that are kind of working together to put that on, which is a good thing. Like it's a good thing that that exists, but yet like the very nature of these kinds of environments, or even just when you're in the neighborhood or you're out on the trail and you're trying to make it a safe and welcoming place for other people and for yourself, like you go through a lot of interactions when you're working with your dog in public or in community that this really specifically the people pleasing part takes up a huge chunk of like your awareness in your environment. So that makes a lot of sense.
It does, and it can really impact your ability to enjoy So a simple example, again, that probably many people can relate to is, let's say you live in an apartment, or you have
Yeah.
close neighbors, and your dog barks, and so I often get people, I'm like, oh my god, my dog barking drives me crazy, or your dog's barking while you're training, or you're running an agility run, or whatever, right? And you're like, oh my god, the barking drives me crazy. And now some people are sound sensitive, right? So there's a legitimate, the barking is like really does drive you crazy. But often case, it's because of your concern of what other people might be thinking about your dog barking. I used to live in an apartment, and my dogs, if they bark, it used to stress me out like crazy. And when I first moved out to the country, I have these big white guardian dogs with my sheep, and they would bark, and I would lie awake waiting for like the neighbors to come pounding on my door.
Yeah.
Can't even see I don't have a neighbor. Plus, it's like the law that my dogs are allowed to bark because they're working dogs protecting livestock. And so it took me quite a while, and I didn't really even realize how much my dog's barking used to like stress me out. Now I don't even think twice about it. I have 14 dogs in the house, and I have 2 big white dogs outside. There's a lot of barking coming around here, and most of the time I don't even notice it. The only time I really notice it is like if it's a bark I need to respond to because they're telling me there's someone here, or there's a coyote, or if I'm like talking now and they start barking, then I'd be like, oh no, right? So it's not the barking itself that's a problem. It's what I make the barking mean. And when I worry about the barking upsetting somebody else. So let's say, and I get this a lot with agility competitors, they get very, very upset because their dogs are barking while running agility. And there's a common belief that they shouldn't, and that's a problem with the training, and they've done something wrong. And so and some people don't care, but some people care a lot because, and there's a lot of that worry that, the barking symbolizes having done something wrong. And that's actually a symptom of people pleasing rather than being
Totally.
like, right. And that can really hold you back, and it can stop you from competing. It can create a feeling of shame. So you don't want to go for help. Or you might be just like, hey, my dog barks and I'm just going to keep going. Right.
Yeah.
And if you can separate out the emotional response, then you can evaluate, like, is this something is this where I want to put my energy? Like, do I think this is actually a problem that, maybe my dog is experiencing frustration, and maybe I need some eyes on my handling to see what's going on here? Or is my dog just a joyful barker and that's okay? And when we can separate out the people pleasing, so we can like not worry about what everybody else in the world thinks, not worry about what all the people on the internet think and all the other people at the trial or whatever, and just allow everybody to have their thoughts and feelings about what my dog's doing. Most people aren't going to pay much attention. We can just be like, okay, now I can sit here from a place of feeling more grounded and objective and evaluate what's going on. And then I can make the right decision for me and my dog. Is this where I want to put my energy, or is my dog just going to be a joyful barker and we're just going to get out there and do our thing? And that's where I want this so much for people to be able to just get to that place of being able to let go of that heavy weight of like trying to control all the people's thoughts and feelings.
Yeah.
Because it's exhausting.
Apparently can't control other people or other dogs barking. But I love that example of the joyful barking, because I could totally relate to that. I want to be mindful of the time, because I know Helene, for those of you who don't know, Helene literally has a farm with like 14 dogs and other animals and lots of chores that she has to do throughout the day. But I just wanted to give folks a chance, if you wanted to ask, we could probably take a question or two before we wrap up. And what you're saying is like, you're saying that, I'm like, yeah, easier said than done. But like you're saying, it's baby steps and it's a process. And I'm really looking forward to hearing how you break that down in your webinar tomorrow. So I guess we should remind folks tomorrow, the webinar, people pleasing. Sorry, I forgot the last part of the title. People pleasing, holding you back without you even knowing it. Yeah. Is at 3 p.m. Pacific time.
Yeah.
Tomorrow. But you can purchase it and catch the recording in your Fenzi library later if you can't make it. But if you can make it live, I would definitely recommend it, because then you can ask Helene your questions so that you can get some actual personalized feedback for how this is working in your training in your life. And then Hey, Denise Svenzi saying, it serves you well way past dog sports.
Yeah.
That's the thing. You can practice so many skills, like life skills, that sexy life skills that my dog teaches me when I practice on this kind of handler end of the
Absolutely.
equation.
Whenever we do something that we're passionate about, it brings up all of our drama.
Yeah.
That, right?
Exactly.
Like, because and then we have to overcome all of that to achieve the goals that we're trying to achieve. And the more we care about what we're doing, the more brain drama it's going to bring up. And when we work through that, it has this amazing ripple effect across our life, which is awesome. Yeah. And I just want to mention that because I love the Q&A, like you said, if for anyone who can join live, I've also created, so during the webinar, I talk about what it's all about, but I also give a really powerful, simple but powerful exercise for identifying when you're people pleasing, and some baby steps to walk your way, to basically develop your stop people pleasing muscles. And I've created a downloadable workbook that actually has like prompts and questions for anybody who's like that kind of a person who likes to like download something and fill it out.
I'm that person.
So good, yeah. So it's you have that like practical side. It's like I teach all the theory, but I give you something really practical to walk away with too, so you can keep working on it long after the webinar.
Oh, okay. Well, I didn't realize that. Well, I'm very much looking forward to that and that extra little workbook component. I don't see any questions here, so I think that's a really good note to end on. And this was fun. I could keep talking about this for a lot longer.
Yeah,
I think we can wrap it up here.
Thank you for inviting me. This was super fun.
Yeah. Okay, well, I'll see you tomorrow at the webinar.
You bet. Bye.
Okay. Bye.